This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Support for this podcast comes from Manscaped, who is the best in the business in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. We're coming close to Christmas, guys. Our jingle bells are starting to jangle. Any of you single guys at your office Christmas party and you see the woman of your dreams across the floor, but you're too down in confidence and you're not sure about your tinsel down below to go and ask her out? Well, that's why Manscaped has designed the electric trimmer. The Lawnmower 2.0 is proprietary skin-safe technology, so this trimmer won't nick or snag your baubles. Manscaping accents are finally a thing of the past. You wouldn't use the same trimmer on your face as you would maybe down there, because that's just nasty. And also, Manscaped has provided us with the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing deodorant and moisturizer. You already put deodorant on your armpits, so why not put it down there too? Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BIGHEADS at manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job, and you know what? Your baubles will thank you. So once again, get 20% off and free shipping when you use the code BIGHEADS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the code BIGHEADS. Stockport Nation, and welcome to the Two Green Browns podcast. As always, we are part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. My name is Neil Dunworth, and I'm joined today by the guys from the Perfectville Miami Dolphins podcast, and we are going to do a quick preview, should I say, of the Browns versus Miami Dolphins coming up this Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time and 6 p.m. our time here in Ireland. But before I talk to the guys, we're just going to take a quick pause, and we're going to have an ad from one of our great partners here at Big Heads Media. So speak to you in 2 minutes.
Bruins Die Hard with John Williams and Boston Bruin, blogger and hockey broadcaster Nick Godin on New England's top Bruins and hockey podcast. A full hour of interviews and Bruins news, along with local, regional, and national hockey news and interviews each week.
So as I said earlier in the podcast, I have the two great guys from Welcome to Perfectville. I've got Sam and Chris here, two Miami Dolphins diehards, one at one side of the US and the other at the other side, east and west, but two diehard Miami fans. And I'm delighted to have these guys on the podcast today to do a quick Miami preview before this Sunday's game. So how are you doing, guys? How's the day treating you?
Chris?
I'm fantastic. Neil, thanks so much for having us. Me and Sam are both so hesitant. We just have manners. We have manners in Perfectville, and neither of us wanted to go first. But honestly,
Right.
Sam, I'm just angry he didn't mention I was a two-time Hall of Famer.
Well, Neil may not know that you are a two-time Hall of Famer, and all the Browns fans out there don't even know what a Hall of Fame is. So we might have to explain that to them. Sorry, Neil, and all the Browns
Started
fans
early
out there. And I was deferring to you, Chris, because I was actually drinking my beer, and I wanted to drink my beer, so I wanted you to answer the man's question. Thank you for having both of us. We're happy to be here. You are right. I'm on the West Coast. Chris is on the East Coast. We have the entire United States covered with pretty much the entire spectrum of Miami Dolphins fans between Chris and myself. So thank you for having us. We're happy and excited for this Cleveland Browns Miami Dolphins matchup, Neil.
Excellent. And just for full disclosure, everybody, the guys literally 30 seconds before my intro said, could you direct the questions to either Chris or Sam? And what did I do? First question out of the gun, completely forgot it. So it's just going to be one of those.
That's how
ones.
I know we're going to be friends. I mean, You listen as well as we listen. So there you go.
It's 1:45 in the morning. I've got all the excuses in the world.
No, it's not. It's not even 5 p.m., Neil. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? It's not even 8 p.m. What are you talking about?
You guys are all time travel. You guys are like, hop in my DeLorean and I'll come back to your time. That's what I'll do.
Well, you're technically in the future, so who wins this game? You should just cut to the chase right now.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll sell you the results. So Miami. I suppose where do we really start with Miami? Every pundit that you speak to kind of says that at the start of the year, they're tanking, they're selling off all their assets, and everything is just going to be kind of a dour situation like it was for us in 2015-16 in Cleveland. But you guys somehow managed to win 2 games in a row. What's the feeling there? Like, is the feeling amongst your fans that you're going to blow the tank, or is it that you guys are happy that the team is putting up a fight and that you don't need the first place pick in the upcoming draft?
Well, I'll go ahead and take this one first here. The Miami Dolphins have successfully tanked their tanking season by winning 2 games, but it was bound to happen. If you look at the schedule this year, they had the Washington Redskins, they have the New York Jets twice, they had the Colts was a little bit of a surprise. You also have the Cincinnati Bengals on this, and I hate to say it, you have the Cleveland Browns. So you have a lot of winnable games even when you're bad. And as somebody on the NFL Network said over here in the United States a couple weeks ago when we beat the Jets, you can never out-bad the Jets. So no matter how bad you try to be, the Jets are experts. They have a PhD in being bad. So you're never going to beat them by losing, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're probably not going to get the number 1 pick, but the whole idea behind tanking was for Tua, the quarterback from Alabama, mm-hmm. and with his hip still being on the field over at Missouri or Mississippi State or wherever he just left that thing laying around, maybe that's kind of up in the air. And quite honestly, I do think, this is my opinion, not necessarily Chris's or anybody else's, you have to show effort. And I think if you look at some of the moves that happened prior to us winning a couple of games, Neil, it really boiled down to Brian Flores being a rookie coach and not losing this locker room in his first season. So I think they did make the decision that we have to go out there. We do have to win a couple of games, or at least try, not just completely tank this entire thing. The problem is, as a Miami Dolphins fan, when they were tanking for Tua, at least I could hang my hat when people were making fun of me and saying, oh, this is what they're supposed to be doing. Now that they've won 2 games, it turns out they're just a bad team, and I'm mad all over again.
Yeah, and the thing I'll say, too, is just real quick, is I played college football at Division II level, not even like the Florida States, the Miamis, the Floridas, the Ohio States, like a Division II school. And I thought I was going to walk in and it's going to be just like amateur hour. And I walk in and these guys are legit. Like, they're legitimate. They are like strong. They're fast. They're big. I actually played with a guy that went undrafted and played for the Jets and Cowboys, and another guy that was drafted in the 4th round out of a Division II school. So my point is, talent is everywhere. And that's at the second level of college. So once you get to the NFL, even though our roster is quote unquote bad, those are the best players in the world. Of course. Still, even the bad ones. So they can luck out and win a couple of games, especially when you have a coach coming from a winning situation in New England. He was just not going to stand for us being an 0-16 team.
That's really interesting because somehow, some way, somehow, the Cleveland Browns managed to win 1 game in 2 years. And, you look into these. I'm not saying that you guys looked into the games because, Brian Flores obviously has some sort of scheme. And some players that nobody's ever heard of, and this is being blatantly honest, have stood up to the plate. And we get onto that later on. But like the Cleveland Browns had players, we went through a year where we won nothing, where we had half the year with Joe Thomas protecting a quarterback who couldn't even, who if he was to throw it up into the sky, he'd miss, He was Deshaun Kaiser. But like, that's how unlucky or how bad or how cursed or whatever we want to call it, the 2015, 2016 seasons were for the Cleveland Browns.
I forgot about Deshaun Kaiser. I forgot that was an actual human being that played quarterback at the NFL level for half a season there. Wow, that is wow.
Craziness. And Cody Kessler and Deshaun Kaiser and Kevin Hogan, the wonderful Kevin Hogan, who came in against Cincinnati, I think, and ran for over 100 yards, and they had no idea what to do because he wasn't throwing the ball, and I don't think he had any idea what to do, and that's why he didn't throw the ball. So it was a perfect storm of ineptitude, I think.
Well, and he was bald and white, so he took everybody off. Like, no one expected him to do that. Wasn't he the quarterback from South Carolina?
I don't know where he was out of, but I think you're correct. But he bounced around on practice squads, and I think he's still in the league. I think he's a backup for somebody in the league still. I wouldn't be 100% sure, but yeah, he was a string bean white guy that literally just sprinted around the field that day, and the commentators are even laughing at one stage, going, "What is going on here? Nobody was expecting this." I remember I was watching it and I was going, if we win with this guy just sprinting around the field and not trying to throw the ball, this is going to be hilarious. It'll be the most.
Kevin Hogan actually went to Stanford and he played for the Browns, Redskins, and Broncos. He is currently a free agent, but he was with the Broncos as late as 2018. So
Yeah, it was close. It started with an S.
Yes, you are correct. South Carolina, Stanford, exactly the same exact program. You are correct.
Yeah. So so I suppose realistically at this stage, the fact that you've won 2 games allows the franchise to kind of save face, and you guys could still get to a Tagovailoa at the same time, considering now, as you mentioned, that he left his hip. 3 draft picks in the first round. It's laying up there for you guys to take it and to take a step after this year. But I suppose there's no point in talking about what may be at the moment. Let's talk about what you guys have already. So you, as I mentioned, you guys have been on a 2-game winning streak so far, obviously prior to the heavy loss of the Bills the weekend. But who really stood out? Who were these people that, you guys mentioned that these still are some of the top players in the world at this sport, even though maybe they may not have been standout names or blue chip players, quote unquote, coming out that the draft Knicks may not have ever got a look at, but some of them seem to be performing well. So who would really be the standout guys that have been performing well for the Dolphins this year?
Well, Sam, I'll take this one. I think for the first 2 I can think of over that win streak were guys that all Dolphins can agree on have been underperforming since we've taken them, and they've taken the next step this season, even in a bad year, and that would be Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki, especially in the first game that we won, I think it was something to do with Adam Gase not using him correctly, because he came out just playing his ass off and was seemingly dropping the microphone when he made catches to get up and really just go over the top more so than we've ever seen from this guy. And I think Flores and coming from the Patriots, they like to spotlight a guy like that against a coach. Maybe like he went to Gesicki and said, I know Adam Gase drafted you and then it didn't use you correctly. We're going to really spotlight you this game. And Gesicki got pumped up because he really played his ass off. And then Devontae Parker's really been quietly having a very good season for a bad team. Ryan Fitzpatrick really went to him and Preston Williams a lot. And when now with Williams out, Parker seems to be our number 1 receiver. So I would say those guys are finally stepping up when we need them to. Unfortunately, it's not for a team that possibly can go anywhere, but they're helping themselves in the future in roster spots. Sam, I don't know if there's another couple of guys maybe defensively that you can think of.
Yeah, I think Devontae Parker should be pointed out. This was a first-round draft pick who, up until this season, had a career high of 4 touchdowns, and that was his second season in the league, second season in the league, where he had 744 yards on the season and 4 touchdowns. He's already at 4 touchdowns this year, and he's at over 600 yards. So he's going to break his personal best by the end of this season. He has a very legitimate shot of getting 1,000 yards on this team for a team that really doesn't have a lot of talent. So he is absolutely, I think, on offense, the most improved player that the Miami Dolphins have had. I would say on defense, Jerome Baker, a linebacker that we drafted last year out of Ohio State, and paired him with Raekwon McMillan, a linebacker that we drafted 3 years ago, who never really lived up to the second-round hype that we had for him, because we drafted him in the second round a couple of years ago. I don't know if it was a scheme fit or what, but Raekwon McMillan has gone from a player that has talent but has not been able to show it to a guy who legitimately could be in the Pro Bowl this year for a very bad Miami Dolphins team. So I would agree with Chris that Devontae Parker on the offensive side is probably the standout, especially with Preston Williams, our rookie undrafted wide receiver, going out with an ACL injury. But on defense, it really has to be a rookie named Christian Wilkins, who's a defensive tackle who we drafted high in the first round, and then Raekwon McMillan. I mean, he's really been, especially against the run, has just been an absolute lights-out, balls-to-the-wall player for us. So those would be the guys to look for if you're watching this from an outsider's perspective. Raekwon McMillan on defense, Devontae Parker on offense. I agree with Chris.
Of course, Raekwon McMillan, former Ohio State. And, when I pick my NFL team, I also pick my college team. It's just as easy to keep it in one area in case.
There you
when
go.
I go to Cleveland, you just do the rounds, you go to all the different games. Follow Cavs too, so it just makes it an awful lot easier. I don't want to have to be racking up the air miles to get to all these different games.
Well, between the three of us, we have LeBron James's career locked down. You're a Cavs fan. Chris is a Miami Heat fan. I'm a Los Angeles Lakers fan. So we have LeBron's entire career on this podcast.
Yeah, it's like a virtual high five for all of us. That's
there you go.
But somebody I've seen,
and Neil, we also all like picking teams to make us want to drink.
Exactly.
There you go. See, I think that's what it really is. We're just fans of drinking, and we're looking for excuses to be able to justify it.
Guilty as charged. Absolutely guilty as charged here. Nick Needham is a guy that seems to that I've heard of as a cornerback as well. Just off tangent, he seems to be basically running as more or less your number one quarterback or cornerback, should I say, at the moment, and seems to be kind of pretty spectacular. Well, I won't say spectacular, but he seems to be pretty solid anyway. They're running with number one wide receivers. Is that something that you guys have seen, or is there anything that I see pop?
Yeah, I'm actually going to take this one. And the reason why I purposely left him off the list, because this is a new addition to the Miami Dolphins defense over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
Neil, I mean, when you look at Raekwon McMillan, you look at Devontae Parker's body of work, at least for the 2019 season, they've been pretty consistent week 1 to week 10 to week 12 to probably week 17. Nick Needham is somebody that came to this team earlier this year, and really the last 2 or 3 weeks has really started to open everybody's eyes. I mean, I know his number now, which is 40. I did not know that a couple of weeks ago. PFF has consistently graded him as one of the top defensive rookies and top defenders in general over the last couple of weeks, even in a loss against the Buffalo Bills last week. You're 100% right. Nick Needham has made a name for himself. I think Chris even said he's made quarterbacks need ice over the last couple of weeks, as he's been just, being a solid defender, not only against wide receivers, but on the occasional blitz package as well. But I'd like to see him do it a little bit more consistently. And the good news from a talent evaluation standpoint, Chris, I want to get your take on this because we're probably going to talk about this on our podcast. The Miami Dolphins are now without Xavier Howard, our number one cornerback. He's out for the season. We're now without Rashad Jones, our longtime starting safety. He's out for the season. We're out Bobby McCain, also out, one of our top cornerbacks. So Nick Needham, all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks of showcasing his talents, is going to be thrown right into the mix against Odell Beckham Jr. and somebody that we know very well, Mr. Jarvis Juice Landry. So we're gonna see what he's up against this week, I think, with very talented wide receivers on both sides of the Cleveland Browns offense.
Well, I think the one thing for me is, Neil, you noticing and knowing this guy's name is the reason why I totally was against the national media shitting all over the Dolphins for this quote-unquote taking and that they were putting players in harm's way. This is a guy, Nick Needham from UTEP, undrafted, that's getting an opportunity to play NFL football and show what he can do. And talking just about how there's guys that always the cream rises to the top, right? You're in the NFL now. This guy, if we were a team challenging for 7-8 wins and Xavier Howard wasn't hurt or McCain and Jones weren't hurt, he'd be just buried in the depth chart or the practice squad somewhere. We're giving these guys a real world XFL, AAF football opportunity that they try to do. We're doing it on a national level with millions of people watching. So Nick Needham is getting a 16-week preseason to put tape out there, and he's taking advantage of it. I mean, 23 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, a pick, and now, like Sam said, he's forced into really cover the number one guys. He's going to be able to show even more what he can do. And those are the guys we talked about before that you build around, right? The first round picks, the Wilkins, the Parkers, the McMillans, those are the guys you build around. But then you also have to add these guys that come out of nowhere from your scouting department and from your GM and your coaching that can really get the most out of them. So a Nick Needham is the type of guy, and like the Philip Laird that we have been throwing to at running back a couple of times, Gaskins from Washington, these guys that you bring in for low cost, that's how you build a consistent winner.
Philip Laird, by the way, is the brother of Patrick Laird, who is the running back on the Miami Dolphins.
Thank you so much. Like we said, we don't know. We didn't even know these fucking guys.
And I don't blame Chris for not knowing who the hell the fifth, the guy on the depth chart is.
Laird, the white guy running back. Yeah,
Laird, the white running back for the Dolphins. That's all you need to know. The white guy running the ball. That's his name. That's what it says on the back of the jersey.
Yeah. Nick Needham he's got some great numbers, as you mentioned. He's got some great height weight kind of ratios and so on for a cornerback, and he kind of, well, not to do with height and weight, but it kind of reminds me of when we were going through our struggles, and some might say we still are going through our struggles, but Brian Body Calhoun was somebody that we picked up off the Jacksonville Jaguars practice squad, and he came in at short notice and played cornerback, and very first snap he played in the NFL, picked off a pass and run it back for a pick six, I think, against you guys, maybe, I think.
I think it
might have
was. I
been.
think that was the game that Jamar Fletcher had an interception finally after we'd given up on him as well. I think he went to the Browns and ended up getting an interception against us. That seems to happen. We have actually a running tally of all the former Finns who go on to have greatness against the Miami Dolphins once they leave South Beach. So it does not surprise me that the guy you were talking about actually got his very first interception on his very first play against the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, well, Brian Barry Calhoun didn't stick around. Well, actually, I would have liked him to stick around this year, but he just didn't. Or last year, I think it was at the end of last year. I don't even think he made it through camp this year. He was cut, and I know he did land on, I think, Texans practice squad, but I think he's been elevated there now. But yeah, didn't stick around Cleveland for much longer after that season. So hopefully Nick Needham has more staying power than Brian Barry Calhoun did with Cleveland. So you guys mentioned as well that your wide receiver room, there was a bit of talk there. Obviously, Preston Williams was putting up some great numbers. Checkered passed, and that's fine. We don't judge over here in Cleveland. We take in all the strays as well that have the checkered pass here. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And we've let fellas go for threatening people via tweets. And this season we've let fellas go for failing piss tests, getting 10 game suspensions because they played a game in Denver, couldn't keep their hands in their pockets. That kind of stuff. And obviously, to be honest with you, the biggest saint on our team swung a helmet at somebody. You might have seen that. You might have heard maybe something about it. I think it was kept very low key.
I heard a little bit about that.
Yeah. And we have a rule now, myself and John have a rule. Well, actually, I'm just actually after making it right now that it's over. We don't talk about it anymore and we move on. Myles Garrett is injured as far as we're concerned. He's not suspended. That's
you're right. We don't need to talk about it. I will just say I think it's very hypocritical of the entire national media for football to get mad at a guy for hitting a quarterback when he was drafted and paid to do exactly that. You didn't tell him that he couldn't hit him with his own helmet. That was not in the actual contract.
It'd be interesting. It will be interesting to see what they do come down with, and we should have results on that maybe on Friday, maybe late Friday afternoon our time. So I'd be interested to see what kind of indefinite number becomes, or what the indefinite becomes definite, and we'll see, because this is going to be, in my view, this is going to be a huge new discussion point on the CBA that the NFL and the NFLPA didn't see coming down the line. And obviously, Myles Garrett is going to be down to the tune of nearly 2 million at this stage. If it rolls into next year, it'll be down to the tune of nearly 2 million. And there's no footballer wants to lose 2 million. And the NFLPA are going to be looking around saying, all the other guys in these squads here, if they lose their mind and do something, and they get suspended for 12 games, which is almost like, if you think about it, majority of players only play between 6 and 7 years in the league. So like that's 1/6 of their career. There's no NFLPA going to stand for that. So this is a watershed kind of a thing, I think, for suspensions and so on.
Here's my official prediction on that. I know you guys don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but Chris, I'd love to hear your opinion on this as well. I think he's gone the rest of the season, obviously. I think the NFL and Roger Goodell is going to push for him to be suspended for the entire season next season. And that's where the NFLPA will stand up and say no, and this will be reduced if that's the case. I think on the men's side, he goes half a season next year sitting on the sidelines. On the max side, he goes all the way through next season and then files for reinstatement after that. I think they're going to try to make an example out of this. This was a huge black eye, not only for Mason Rudolph legally and technically, but this happened on a national stage, and this is something that they're going to have to make a statement. Unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen. And if you look at all the evidence, Mason Rudolph started it. If we're going to go back to the schoolyard rules here, Mason Rudolph started this fight, and he did not finish this fight. But at the end of the day, Myles Garrett did swing his own helmet and hit him in the head with it, unprotected. So that being on the internet for the rest of humanity to see, they're going to make a huge statement on this.
I think I got 3 things. First of all, I got to stand up for Pouncey. That was pretty dope how he jumped in immediately. And that's what we had Mike Pouncey on our team for a very long time. And that's just the Pouncey brothers. That's where they come from. That's their culture. That's where they're from. They defend their brothers. That's it. That was pretty cool. And I really hope his appeal gets turned over. But I got to say, Neil, thanks a lot. Like we said earlier, we're trying to tank here, and you're going to get half your fucking team suspended before playing the Miami Dolphins, giving us some kind of glimmer of a hope with a backup center and a backup defensive end. Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be helping us here. And I will say also, Mason Rudolph is a douche and seems like he deserved that, because his interviews afterwards were cringy. And I mean, no one deserves a helmet to the head. I will say that. I'm obviously just exaggerating a little bit, but he has come across very douchey in these post interviews. 6 days later, he does like a crappy like written statement that he just came out with today. So not saying Myles Garrett obviously did the right thing, but heat of the moment. I know Deion Sanders mentioned something. Heat of the moment. Your adrenaline's going. People are screaming. Your rivals. You're all competitive individuals to have come this far and make it in the league and not only be good but be great as Myles Garrett is. He just had a lapse of judgment. There's times where I've played a football game and the only way I can explain it is tunnel vision. Like you have no control over anything you're doing. You seem to be floating and sleepwalking, but you're making plays at full speed. And I know he was swinging that helmet in a slow motion and his brain was saying, oh no, I should not do this. But the cat was out of the bag. It was already happening. So I think my third point is, I think he's going to get they're going to push for a strong suspension. Sam said the storm was perfect. National TV, rivals, end of a game. It was over basically. And then the scrum happens and they're going to try to really nip this in the bud because they don't want it to happen again. But they have to set a precedent for something like this because the only thing I can compare it to is out of the NFL. It was like FIU versus Miami years ago where that absolute gang brawl happened in the middle of the field. And then I think actually today is the anniversary of the palace of the Pistons and the Pacers and the fans and the players. That's the only other thing I can compare it to something that just is so different and crazy. It's never happened before that you have to really set a precedent. So I agree with Sam. They're going to try to do something crazy and suspend them for a whole season. But I really think the NFL Players Association is going to jump in and it's going to get nipped maybe in half. I don't know.
No, I will also say this. I think the fact that he hit Mason Rudolph is why you're going to see this suspension be even more stout than it should be. Had this been Ben Roethlisberger, I think they'd be giving him a parade and a bonus. That's just my opinion.
If it was Tom Brady, he would have got the electric chair.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he nearly got the electric chair anyway, as it is. If Damien Woody had got his hands in him, I think he would have euthanized him somehow. But no, I think that, look, you have to go with, there is a precedent set here previously. I think that's why I mentioned the CBA. I mentioned there would be probably a bylaw written in. The NFLPA would agree that the bylaw would maybe be written in somewhere to account for this. I cannot see there being a suspension any longer than 6 games. And plus the playoffs, should we make it this time around. The reason being is, this has happened before. Some guy like Antonio Smith did it to Richie Incognito only 5 years ago, and he got 2 preseason games, 1 game. And the argument that's going to be here is that the precedent is there, and number 2 is if you murder somebody and it's not on TV, does that mean you get a lesser sentence than if you murder somebody and it is on TV? So there is precedent here. I know where you guys are coming from, but I think that this, like, you can say what you want about the NFL and so on, but the legal parameters and precedent, I think, will come into play here. And I think that he'll get the rest of this season and the playoffs, and then we'll see what happens there.
Well, Neil, the one thing that you do have to keep in mind is that the precedent that was set was what Richie Incognito getting hit in the head with a helmet, and they got 2 games in preseason as a suspension. Yeah. That's because nobody likes Richie Incognito, including Richie Incognito. That doesn't count as a precedent. That's just going to be wiped clean from the slate, and they're going to start over here. Beyond that, he's a fat offensive lineman who's also offensive versus a quarterback, a good-looking kid who's on national TV. So. I don't know if the precedent is really going to stick. I get what you're saying, but listen, it's almost like a prize that they give away for the NFL. If you get the right scratcher, you get to hit Richie Incognito in the head with a helmet. Well, so I don't know if that's going to really going to stick as a precedent. It
will be very interesting to see what they do come down with, though, because literally it's like, nobody knows, because it's the NFL, and it's basically you wake up in the morning and you just decide, and there's and this is the thing, like this, as I mentioned, this is the start of the CBA. Like what happened today, the conversations that Myles Garrett had there with the NFLPA representative within that hearing room or whatever it is, you can now consider the CBA is starting right now from today, because this is if the NFL give him a massive fine, a massive suspension, you could be guaranteed, damn sure, that it's expediting a lockout from 2021 as well. So this is where things start. I feel anyway. That's just my feeling on it as well. But look, it's up to James Trash now. Whatever he throws down. Look, we got to accept it. He hit somebody. You know, if he's out for 6 games, fine. If he's out for 4 games next year, yeah, I'd be pretty pissed off about it. If he's out for 10 in total, I'd be very, very pissed off about it. You know, but you just gotta take your medicine sometimes as well. You know, when you do the crime, you do the time, and hopefully that still I want him back on the field. I don't think any less of him as a person. We play a game here in Ireland called hurling, and if you watch it, if you look it up on YouTube, you'll see being hit over the head with no helmet by your own helmet is pretty minor when you look at the game of hurling, especially if you look at it prior to 2006. You'll see some pretty, basically put it this way, concussion was only invented in 2006 in hurling's mindset anyway. So
Neil, you can't bring this game up with some Perfectville listeners definitely listening and not explain what the hell hurling is.
Hurling is not getting sick profusely. Hurling is a game with a stick and a ball. It's kind of like hockey, except it's kind of like lacrosse mixed with is it lacrosse? Yeah, lacrosse mixed with hockey, mixed with I don't know, some game where you can hit people hard.
It sounds like ancient warfare before planes and bombs were
essentially it is. Yeah.
I'm gonna say war. Is that what you're trying to say?
It's war. It's organized war. Exactly. It's organized battlefield, ancient war, and that's actually what it used to be in olden days. 2 towns would line up with, like, if one town wanted to have 30 people or 40 people, the other town would have maybe 30 or 40 people line up. And the rule was they'd meet up equidistant between the 2 towns. A ball would be thrown in, and whichever team was able to get the ball to the other team's town. So it was basically protect your town with the ball, and it could go on for hours. And it was just,
so it's like capture the flag, but beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone shakes hands. And you know what the funny part about it is? When you look at it, it's amateur. And it's never going to be professional.
I don't know why. It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird that it hasn't caught on across the entire world. I do also need to point out, Neil, that you just said that Myles Garrett, you don't think any less of the man after he beat the crap out of another man with his own helmet.
I don't think any less of him at all.
As a man, I mean, that's how tough the Irish are, Chris, because if our left tackle gets caught holding on a play, I'm ready to string him up in the middle.
Cut him immediately, yeah.
Yeah, but that's Julian Davenport. I don't think he's cuttable, very cuttable. Myles Garrett isn't.
I don't know if you're the hardest guy I've ever talked to or the nicest, most forgiving, but I just beat another guy in the head, bashed his skull in with his own helmet. You're like, I don't think any less of him.
He was just having a bad day, Sam. He's fine.
No, it's like it's the same.
You can watch my kids.
Momentary moment of madness, momentary lapse of judgment, and so on. Yeah, we'll see. Myles Garrett will come out of this. Well, no, he will never come out of not being the guy that swung the helmet or whatever.
Listen, Ray Lewis killed a guy and is now in the Hall of Fame with a Super Bowl ring. Myles Garrett can recover.
Yeah, exactly.
Allegedly.
Ray Lewis allegedly. Yeah, all that. Anywho, before we really get into trouble on that one,
I'm gonna get a knock at my door. It's gonna be Myles Garrett and Ray Lewis and Richie Incognito. Just like, we heard you were talking. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
2 of them holding helmets. Ray Lewis holding a knife.
Yeah.
He's holding the door so they can get away quick. Okay.
Yeah, Antonio Callaway driving the car high as a kite. Anyway, Brian Flores. Nice guy. Completely clean record as well. We might want to add, Brian Flores is no way related to the previous gentleman that we have spoken about over the last 10 minutes. But what's your views on Brian Flores? You know, scheme-wise, vision-wise, obviously, he's mentioned previously that he's come from a winning team. He seems to, and if memory serves me right, he brought some people from the Patriots with him as well to the backroom team. But what are your first impressions of, you know, what he brings to the organization from, obviously, number one, from on the field side, scheme side? And do you think that he has maybe the cultural tenacity himself and maybe the kind of the ear of the owner And I know it's very, very quick or early in his tenure, but does he have the ear of the owner enough to be able to maybe survive 2 or 3 seasons of a rebuild? Because Hugh Jackson certainly didn't have that in Cleveland.
I'll take this one to start. I think from the limited amount of time we've seen Flores on the field in his press conferences, I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's just a guy that's no nonsense. He works hard. He's not going to ask anybody or any of his coaches, any of his players to do something he wouldn't do himself. He comes from not just a long line. A lot of these coaches come in, they're like strictly a linebacker coach, and then a defense a quality control coach, and then a defense coordinator, and that's all they've done. Brian Flores has done everything. He was like a tape coordinator, a scout. He worked offense. He did defense. He just knows a lot about football. And one thing we trashed Adam Gase on last year was when the offense was not on the field, he was not paying attention. He was just on the sidelines writing plays, worried about being an offensive coordinator. And that's where we're like, dude, you're the head coach. You have to know what's going on. And then in the press conference, he would call out the defense or something. And it's like, how do you even know that's what happened? You weren't watching. Like, I don't get it. So Brian Flores is fully involved. I like how he's holding the younger guys accountable. There was a time where he like literally pulled a few times actually. He's pulled Christian Wilkins off the field, our first round pick from Clemson. He was getting in the ear of Jerome Baker last week and really chewing them out. But the guys respect him. And the thing I like the most about Brian Flores is with this horrendous roster, we are number 1 in penalties.
Yes.
We have the least amount of penalties in the entire league. We're disciplined, and that's something Sam and I and the members and the population of Perfectville cannot say from the last few years with Adam Gase. We are a disciplined team. We're not penalized. We're not making stupid mistakes. And that's something with the kind of roster that he's working with, I feel is a huge plus side. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with the talent we finally bring in, with the cap space we have and the draft capital that we've acquired over the last few months.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I think the only faux pas that we've seen from Brian Flores so far this season is that he did make an announcement that Josh Rosen would be the starting quarterback for the remainder of the season after week 3. And then after 1 week of seeing Josh Rosen pretend to be a quarterback, he immediately went, I'm just kidding. Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be our quarterback from here on out. And I think that was a little bit of a misstep with the media. And it also made him look like maybe he either wasn't fully in charge and somebody else was making that decision for him, or perhaps he's just wishy-washy and he went from one to the other based off of one bad performance. But that aside, I'm really impressed with everything that he's been doing. Like Chris had said, I mean, this, let's be honest, this franchise needed to be stripped down to the foundation, and that foundation needed to be x-rayed to see if there were any major cracks that were about to open up this entire space. So he has done a very good job of bringing this back down to the fundamentals. If you make a mistake in practice, you run to the wall, you run laps, just like old school football as you grew, as you played growing up. He's bringing it down to that level, and the players are responding. Even though they're 2-8, they're playing hard. They're not an easy out like people think on the national level. If you actually play the Miami Dolphins, especially now versus early in the season, this is a really, really tough out for the Cleveland Browns or any other team going forward. They hit hard, they play well, they do the best they can to execute the plays that are put in front of them. And those types of fundamentals are somewhat evergreen, right? You can take those from this season to next season as you build on your talent, and then from that season to the next season, assuming they're not locked out, as Neil said. And now you have talent and fundamentals combined with hopefully good coaching day in and day out, play in and play out, to where you can actually have some success. I'm just going to give you one example that Brian Flores did against the Colts that I thought was really Bill Belichick-esque. And I talked about this on the last episode of Welcome to Perfectville. It was like 3rd and 17. It was, I think, the third quarter. It was loud. They're playing at Indianapolis, and the Miami Dolphins just couldn't get set. They couldn't hear Ryan Fitzpatrick at the line. They couldn't get the play off. And instead of calling a timeout, because they had 3, they actually just let the clock run out. They took a delay of game penalty. Yeah. They moved it back. Yeah, they moved it back to 3rd and 23. And really the logic is we don't have a play and we don't have the talent to convert 3rd and 17. Most teams do not. So instead of calling a timeout, wasting that timeout, and then getting 5 yards, 6 yards, whatever, we're going to go ahead and let the crowd get loud. They're going to die down because that's just natural instinct. And then we're going to run a play at 3rd and 23, and we're going to punt the ball away when we get to 4th and 15. And it was logical. It was sound. And I wasn't upset about that penalty at all. It was a good penalty to take. So when you talk about the fact that they're the least penalized team in the league and they're the youngest team in the league, those two things usually don't intersect. And on top of that, some of the penalties that we do have are self-inflicted on purpose, just for the in-game strategy. So I like what I see out of Brian Flores when it comes to the actual strategy in-game. The X's and O's, if he's not the guy like Adam Gase claimed to be, that's when you go out and you get the talent. That's when you bring people from a New England Patriots where he came from and say, you are going to be the X's and O's guys, and I'm going to be the one that implements that game plan and has sound judgment from whistle to whistle. So I like that. But can he do it for 3 years? Well, at some point you do have to win. It's a results-oriented league, right? So if he, after 3 years, we're still 4-12, I think at that point, people are going to start turning on him and saying, is he the guy? But for now, yes, I think Dolphin fans everywhere are totally fine with Brian Flores leading this ship.
That's amazing, because you mentioned about strategic penalties and taking penalties and doing that. Even if there was a strategy behind that, and if Freddie Kitchens did that in a game, I genuinely think that there will be some sort of nuclear explosion in First Energy. It's happened. It happened. Something similar happened. I can't remember the exact game this year, but something similar happened. And then, it was like Cleveland media went full TMZ on it, and it was like, what was your state of mind when you were thinking about this? And were you thinking about something else? And it was like, come on, ask the question once, get his answer, and move on, please. It just, it was. Yeah, it's crazy, but it is good to see that that, as you say, that he does. I mentioned cultural tenacity, kind of on purpose, because I knew that you guys were one of the lesser penalized team and the least penalized team, should I say, within the league, and that is definitely something to hang your hat on, because hey, look at us over here, 19 penalties in one game. So, and as we mentioned, swinging helmets previously, but so penalties aren't. But it's interesting. You said the Flores gets people to run gassers and stuff like that in training and when penalties. So does Freddie Kitchens gets our guys to do that as well in training and after games and stuff. But I suppose it kind of comes down to, how does a coach how does the coach earn that respect, and how do they gain that respect? Because they're going to be the first one that's going to be called upon that, well, it's your fault that the culture is poor within the team and so on. But I think that's a kind of more of a question for the psychological podcast and leadership podcast. But it's always one that I kind of struggle to fully blame the coach for it when it's going wrong. But I definitely would always give the coach credit when it's going right. Because
well, yeah, but I mean, and you look at the expectations for both franchises that we're talking about here, the Cleveland Browns and the Miami Dolphins. I don't think anybody has any question that the Cleveland Browns have more talent, in particularly on offense. You have Jarvis Landry, you have Odell Beckham, you have Baker Mayfield. But then again, from a personality test standpoint, you have Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, and Baker Mayfield. Miami Dolphins don't have a Jarvis Landry anymore. They never had an Odell Beckham, and they don't have a Baker Mayfield. We don't have our guys going out there grabbing their crotch on the sideline saying, look at this. We don't have, the dynamic personalities of Odell and Juice on either side. So your coach, your front office has a completely different dynamic that they have to manage than the Miami Dolphins do. And with that talent, though, are expectations. So the Cleveland Browns being 3-6 or 3-7, is that what you guys are?
4-6.
4-6. My apologies. I forgot you guys beat the Ravens of all the teams. So you guys just whooped the crap out of the Ravens. Yeah, 4-6. We're 2-8. The Miami Dolphins fans are like, cool, we're 2-8. I think Cleveland Brown fans are like, what's wrong? We're 4-6.
Exactly.
And it's just a matter of those expectations being set early in the season, and especially with the talent level that you guys have in particular on offense versus what the Miami Dolphins have or don't have.
And that's it. We're 2 field goals away, one against Denver and one against the Seahawks from actually being 6-4, and then this team doing cartwheels and then going, oh my God, no, Myles Garrett is out. Whereas now a lot of the fan base are going, we're 4-6. We need to win out to have a chance of getting a wild card spot. And then at that, we still need to make sure that the tiebreakers go in our favor. Whereas if we were 6-4, I think that there would be floods of tears. I probably would be cutting a different figure talking to you guys today and saying that maybe I mightn't respect the man so much if what was on the line. But I still think that we'll win out. I still think we have the potential to win out. The talent in this team is huge, and I think the offense is clicking. Like they played it, like that gets lost in this game against Pittsburgh that we played. We played a damn good game in against Pittsburgh, both on defense. Sorry, on defense, should I say? And then on offense, we played enough to win the game, and probably a small bit more, even when we couldn't get our run game going. Now I know you guys mentioned Nick Needham, and you guys mentioned this. You mentioned Raekwon McMillan and stuff like that, but safeties are probably going to be a huge issue for. Well, they're going to be a huge issue for us because we don't have that many either. We've Demarius Randall plus guys, and you guys have 2 free safeties in. Who's it? Colbert and Parker. Are they the 2 guys? Stephen Parker.
Sure.
And
I don't even know who those guys are.
Yeah, so
I thought that's what your name was.
So it's going to be a game whereby, like, we've got 2 all-worldly running backs. We're going to try and run the ball down your throat, I would imagine. I would imagine Nick Chubb is pretty. He's pretty good. That's what I'm going to say. He's pretty
Nick
good.
Chubb is very
Hunt,
good. He's very good.
Kareem Hunt is Kareem Hunt. He's pretty good as well. So I think that the order of the day is going to be running down your necks as much as we possibly can. Obviously, with there not being a strong safety on the roster, we've got David Njoku. Would be interesting to see if he comes back running over the middle as well, as something we've really, really missed. Baker loves to throw to tight ends. Last year he threw to Darren Fells, who was a giant, and he threw to David Njoku, especially in the red zone. This year in the red zone, all he's done is look for a lot. Sorry, I won't say all he's done. A lot of the time, unless it's a very scheme play, when the play breaks down, he looks for Demetrius Harris in the back of the end zone, usually beside the uprights. But Demetrius Harris has hands like feet a lot of the time, and he doesn't catch as well as he should. So David Njoku coming back would be something. But I lost my train of thought, really. My initial question was, how do you guys think that you're going to fare against the run? Because not many teams are kind of stuffing our run this year, and it's a really good platform for us when things go wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here, and I'll let Chris provide some color on top of this because he's really good at this. But in my opinion, if I'm the Miami Dolphins, this is a game where if you look at the offensive firepower that the Cleveland Browns have, be it Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Baker Mayfield, David Njoku returning, Odell Beckham Jr., and Jarvis Landry. I mean, this is a roster that's put together on Madden, and even then they might veto a couple of those moves because it doesn't seem realistic. I think if you're the Miami Dolphins, you're not going to out-talent the Cleveland Browns defense to offense. It's just not going to happen. So what the Miami Dolphins are going to have to do is get creative, hide their schemes, come in late on blitz packages where they're not showing what they're doing ahead of time. They've been doing a little bit of that amoeba defense that you saw with Bill Belichick, where everybody's standing up and just kind of moving around before the snap. And then when the snap goes, they know what they're supposed to do. I think you're going to see a little bit more of that against the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield is still very young when it comes to being an NFL quarterback. I think you might be able to confuse him a little bit with some of those sophisticated schemes. However, the Miami Dolphins are a very young defense, so they might confuse themselves and leave somebody like an Odell Beckham or David Njoku wide open over the middle. But I think you do that because if they are going to run against the Miami Dolphins, I don't know if Baker Mayfield is going to be comfortable enough audibling out of, or if he even has the ability to audible out of a run play if something looks stacked up front and go find a Jarvis Landry or an Odell Beckham, that's going to be on a hot route or something like that. So I think it's really going to come down to scheme for the Miami Dolphins. If they can scheme their way to keep this close and then get lucky with an interception or a fumble recovery or something like that, that would allow them to maybe steal this game. I think that's probably going to be the best way on defense to handle a very talented Cleveland Browns offense.
The thing for me is I think it's going to be it's odd to say it's going to come down to one player, and I don't mean that to say I think we'll win if this person plays, but I think us being competitive on defense is going to come down to if Taco Charlton plays or not. He has been our only guy that has garnered any kind of a pass rush, and if we can't get a pass rush and Mayfield can go back in the pocket and pick us apart with the weapons he has, and have balance with a run game, like we're going to have to be able to take away one of the two. And if we don't get a pass rush and we can't stop the run, this is going to be a blowout and it's going to be ugly for your favor, Neil, because I just don't – Sam rattled off all those names and you're like, yeah, we got Jerome Baker, we got Raekwon McMillan, possibly. He didn't play this week. Prior, and then we just benched McCain and Jones, and now we're playing with these guys, Parker and Needham and all this, and you're like, Is Eric Rowe going to play? Is he going to be all right? Which row are we going to get at corner? We're running literally with guys that would normally be playing the majority of the game in the third and fourth week of preseason on our defensive backfield. So if you can spread us out with the talent you guys have, and we have to go dime and bring in these guys that haven't played before, and we can't get a pass rush, then it's all she wrote. I mean, it's just going to be really ugly. We're going to literally have to count on Ryan Fitzpatrick shooting out with Baker Mayfield and just throw defense out the window. We got to score 40 points, and we just don't have the talent to do it.
It's so interesting because they're the kind of the situations I feel with Browns as well. Our defensive backs are, well, we do have defensive backs, but like we're missing Morgan Burnett, who was playing his breakout game for us for the season and snapped his Achilles tendon. Big loss for us. Eric Murray, huge loss for us as strong safety. So strong safety, we're kind of missing a bit with Justin Burris, converted cornerback that came in from the Jets at the start of the year. Now he has played really well and he's graded out pretty well on PFF side of things. So there is a small chink of light there as well. And we've just elevated JT Hassel from our practice squad. But up front as well, obviously without Myles Garrett, it could be another former Dolphin that comes back to haunt you. Should he play at the weekend? I would presume if he doesn't train today, which is Thursday for me, which you guys are still in Wednesday. If Olivia Vernon doesn't train today,
he's going to kill us.
Gonna play.
He's going to kill us. Olivia Vernon's going to play, and if he does, he's going to have 3 sacks, and that's just Sam will completely back me up on this. That's just the way it works.
At some point, Olivia Vernon's going to line up as a fullback. Baker Mayfield's going to turn and hand him the ball, and he's going to go ahead and throw that to Jarvis Landry for a touchdown because that's what happens. The former Fins against the Miami Dolphins.
He'll throw up a U from the University of Miami, and then he'll do the fins up thing, and then he'll just like laugh and do the L dance from Fortnite, and we'll all cry in our beer.
Yeah, I mean, expect Jarvis Landry to get, triple digits in yardage, probably 2 touchdowns, and double digits in catches. I mean, this is the Jarvis Landry I told you so game, and I think we know this going into it.
He actually has been our most consistent wide receiver threat, and he's not just playing over the middle. He's really becoming Baker's kind of safety blanket, and he's finding stuff on the outside, over the middle. Running nice little hitch routes inside as well, just to kind of get into those positions, because we haven't had a tight end that could get into those positions over the middle of the field. And he's really been doing both those, because even our big 6'8" tight ends that we have in Demetrius Harris and Pharaoh Brown, sometimes they leave a lot to be desired in the blocking game. And Jarvis had to pull up his sleeves. And you know what? We're really impressed with him from a cultural standpoint. He's earning way too much money. And well, is he earning? I don't care. It's not my money. Actually.
Sorry about that.
Not even going to get down that line about his contract, but he's playing really well, and he is our best offensive skill position guy outside of the running backs that we have so far. So what you guys said, triple digits, maybe 2 touchdowns. I think that could happen, but I think that what Freddie does is he just puts the ball in the hands of Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt will probably line up in the slot an awful lot as well. That's what they do. They play two running back sets. Hunt motions out into the slot, and sometimes he motions back into kind of more or less a fullback position. Has been doing some decent blocking. First game he was unbelievable. Last game against Pittsburgh wasn't great. But then again, when you've Bud Dupree and TJ Watt teeing off against our left tackle and our right tackle, you're probably going to be at the losing battle there, because they're not going to slow him down as well. But I think from a Cleveland point of view, as I mentioned, our areas of weakness is going to be pass rush. If Olivia Vernon doesn't play, we have Chad Thomas and we have Chris Smith, who I don't have too much hope for the two of those. We got Brian Cox Jr. we signed from the Jaguars practice squad, but I don't think he sees time. What you
like
could
the
see,
Brian Cox, former Dolphins Brian Cox?
His son. Yeah, his son.
Wow. Yeah. He's probably going to kill us too if he does play. and honestly, the only thing I can think of is this is the type of game where Christian Wilkins and Devon Godchell, our 2 defensive tackles, are young guys, LSU and Clemson.
Yeah.
If and when Marquise Pouncey's suspended and he's out, that's where your backup, that should be Brian Flores's bullseye, is to try to get those 2 to really disrupt up the middle and cause Baker to scramble. But then we saw last week against the Bills, Allen just destroyed us with his feet, and Mayfield's not much less athletic. So it would be it's going to be an interesting tactic to see what they do.
Well, I don't think the Browns are going to care if Marquise Pouncey is actually suspended. He's on the Steelers still, unless something changed here today.
Sam, like I don't even get it. This is ridiculous. Myles Garrett's out though, but so our left tackle is going to have a good game. Here we go.
What we've done
is boom, save.
We've done a deal with the NFL. See, it's just you guys have just broke news there. Myles Garrett only gets 6 games, but we have to take Maurice Pouncey as well onto our team and absorb his money too. Look, if that was what it took, that's what it took. I'm okay with that. But no, our center actually on a complete tangential piece. Our center is completely different to Marquise Pouncey, should I say? And he's completely different to he is the guy that has no chinks in his armor from a character point of view. Out of Cornell, brainy guy, former Packer. JC Tretter just signed a new contract, and he's damn good too. I think he's number 1 rated center via PFF in the league. So our interior is pretty decent. Wyatt Teller is going to be playing right guard, I would imagine, unless they put in Drew Forbes. They've had a bit of a rotation system at right guard between Eric Cush and Wyatt Teller recently. It's not helping our right tackle Chris Hubbard, who was poor to begin with, and he's not much better as it is now. And then we've got Greg Robinson at left tackle, who's okay, but he's Greg Robinson at the end of the day. So that's where the real kind of the band-aids need to come for us in the draft and in free agency next year is definitely the 2 tackle positions, and then maybe look towards trying to shore up our linebacker and our secondary then as the year goes on. So, guys.
Well, Neil, I will say if Flores comes out and he tries to prepare for Marquise Pouncey, I was just kidding, by the way. If he does that, then I can re-record with you the next week and totally shit all over Brian Flores as a head coach.
That's it. Yeah. Brian Flores got ahead of himself. Completely different team.
I would be scared if the head coach of the Miami Dolphins was getting his game plan information from Sam Marcoux and Chris Cullen at a Perfectville. He's like, Amoeba defense. Got it, guys. We'll try that this week against Cleveland.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how many defensive coordinators are going to be going, no, we just got to stop that center. Whatever we do, that center cannot get the ball. Well, actually, if you do stop the center from getting the ball, well, then the quarterback doesn't get the ball. So that might be a good tactic. You're on to something.
That's some next level Bill Belichick stuff. That's right there. Somehow get to the center before he gets to the ball, and they can't hike it.
There you go. Yeah. And tie games. That's what you do. You get 16 ties. Might get you into a playoff. You never know.
When you're 2-8, you'll take a tie. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, unless you're coming off an 0-16 season, you're playing against the Steelers, and then you go on to play missed field goal tennis for full 10 minutes of overtime. That you won't take it then. It literally feels like that was bad. That was a kick to the.
I don't know. We love Cody Parkey in Miami. He's our favorite kicker of all time.
Cody Parkey.
That was we should never let go of Cody Parkey because we've had 15 of them since. Although I will say Austin Seibert has been automatic up until the last game. He missed 2 against the Steelers, but there were 2 into Gale Breeze down at the wrong side of the stadium on First Energy, where it's known to be like the Bermuda Triangle of kicking. So I wouldn't. They're the only 2 kicks he's missed as field goals this year. So. We've kind of found our punting and our kicking team are outstanding. That's just they're really good. Now I've just jinxed them, and there's going to be 2 block punts from Jamie Gillen, and Seibert's going to miss out around him. But it's something I'm willing to do. So, guys, thanks so much for popping on today. As I say, it's in the lap of the gods. A lot of things are in the lap of the gods. Myles Garrett's suspension, as we spoke about, and we're not going to know what way the game is going to go, especially this erratic Cleveland Browns team until the final whistle is blown on Sunday. But thanks so much for coming on. It's been a lot of insight on this team. A lot of insight on players that, to be honest with you, I would never have heard about or would never have even looked up unless you guys, hadn't given me the heads up on it. So thank you so much. Do you guys want to just maybe just plug podcasts, plug maybe where you guys can be found for anybody that's listening?
Yeah, we our podcast is called Welcome to Perfectville. We're part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network, just like you guys. You can find us on Twitter at Perfectville Pod. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. We come out with a weekly podcast about the Miami Dolphins and all the good, the bad, and everything in between. Chris, anything you want to add?
No, that's it. Yeah, just look us up. Welcome to perfectville.com. And we're on the Miami Dolphins subreddit on reddit.com as well.
Excellent. So thanks once again, guys. And as I say, hopefully we have a safe game and everybody gets home with their helmets on. And that's all I wish for in this game. After that, everything else is a bonus.
Thanks, Neil.
All right. Thanks,
Adios,
Neil.
guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thanks so much to the guys from the Welcome to Perfectville podcast, both Sam and Chris, for popping on there. That was a really, really cool conversation. Give the guys a quick follow on Twitter. If anybody here is interested in anything to do with Miami Dolphins, please give them a follow. Or if you're just an NFL fan that wants to hear about the woes, or even coming up to draft time, actually might be a good one to follow, considering that that they will be very, very focused on the draft. And I know that there are a lot of people out here that listen to this podcast that are focused on the draft too. They may want to hear about some of the prospects that they are interested in. So that brings us towards another week, another Sunday, and another game in the NFL. It's been an eventful one. Hopefully by the time we're speaking to you next, we will know what the outcome of Myles Garrett's hearing is, and hopefully it will be a favourable one for us as Clevelanders and for Myles himself. So that's really it for the podcast. Give us a quick follow on @2GreenBrowns. Give John a quick follow on JohnCahill_IRL. Give us likes. Any likes on Twitter, any retweets on Twitter will be really, really appreciated. Any 5-star ratings on iTunes and all that. And, share the podcast with your friends if you like it. And, thank you so much for everybody who listens. And as I always say, we really, really appreciate every person who takes the effort to download and to listen to the podcast. So that's really it for the pod. As I mentioned, on to another week, and hopefully we get a win to get us to 5-6. And all that's left to say is go Brownies.